The unstoppable force. Supreme Admiral Vorthak stood on the command bridge of the massive dreadnought World Ender, his 6 arms crossed behind his towering frame. Through the reinforced viewing ports, he watched the final moments of the Zilani homeworld. Orange flames danced across the planet's surface as his bombardment fleet systematically destroyed every major city. It was a sight he had witnessed 73 times before, and it never grew old. The Kitharans were the apex predators of the galaxy. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with thick, armored skin and multiple limbs designed for combat, they had evolved as the dominant species on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Their empire had grown steadily for 4 centuries, consuming every civilization that dared stand in their path. Status report. Vorthak commanded, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the bridge. Sub-Admiral Krex, his second-in-command, approached with typical Kitharan efficiency. His lower arms worked a holographic display while his upper arms remained at attention. All major population centers have been neutralized. Supreme Admiral. Resistance has ceased. The surviving Zilani are requesting surrender terms. Vorthak's mandibles clicked together in what passed for amusement among his species. Surrender terms. They had their chance for peaceful submission. Begin the processing protocols. The survivors will serve the Empire in the labor camps. The Zilani had been a peaceful species, much like most of the civilizations the Kitharans encountered. They possessed advanced technology and had even achieved interstellar travel, but they lacked the warrior spirit that defined Kitharan society. When Vorthak's fleet had arrived at the edge of their system 3 days ago, the Zilani had tried diplomacy first, then desperate defense. Neither had saved them. "Sir," Communications Officer Thys called out from her station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zilani government complex. They're offering complete surrender and requesting mercy for their civilian population." Vorthak considered this for a moment. The Kitharans had rules of conquest that had served them well. Complete surrender before the final bombardment meant the surviving population would be enslaved rather than exterminated. It was a practical decision more than a merciful one. Live slaves were more useful than dead heroes. Accepted, he decided. Cease bombardment. Begin ground occupation immediately. I want all military assets secured and all technological databases downloaded within 6 hours. As his forces moved to complete the conquest of yet another world, Vorthak turned his attention to the strategic display showing the next phase of Kitharan expansion. The Outer Rim territories lay ahead, a collection of smaller colonies and trading posts that would provide excellent staging areas for their push into the galactic core regions. "Navigate to our next objective," he ordered. "The survey reports indicate 17 inhabited systems in the Outer Rim. We'll sweep through them systematically, as always." "Supreme Admiral," Sub-Admiral Krex said, pulling up detailed star maps. "Intelligence indicates one of these systems has been recently colonized by a species called humans. They appear to have established 3 small settlements in the Arcturus sector." Vorthak studied the tactical display with interest. The human settlements were positioned along major trade routes, suggesting they understood strategic value. However, the intelligence reports showed they possessed no significant military assets and maintained only basic defensive systems. "What do we know about these humans?" Vorthak asked. Krex manipulated the display to show biological and technological assessments. "They're a relatively young spacefaring species, Supreme Admiral. They originated from a single world in what they call the Sol system. Physically, they're quite small, averaging only 6 feet in height with single-limb appendages. Their technology appears adequate but not advanced. Most interesting is their apparent lack of unified government. They seem to operate through multiple competing factions." This information pleased Vorthak greatly. Divided species were always easier to conquer. Without unified command, they couldn't coordinate effective resistance. The Kitharans would be able to defeat them piece by piece, exactly as they had done with dozens of other civilizations. "Estimated time to pacification?" Vorthak inquired. "Based on similar conquests, Supreme Admiral, no more than 2 days for all 3 colonies. Their total population appears to be less than 50,000 across all settlements. We may not even need to deploy ground forces." Vorthak nodded approvingly. Quick conquests meant the fleet could maintain its momentum. The Kitharan war machine was most effective when constantly moving, never giving potential enemies time to organize resistance or call for help from allies. "Set course for the human colonies," he commanded. "Alert all ship commanders. We'll demonstrate Kitharan's superiority to these humans, just as we did to the Zilani. Perhaps they'll be wise enough to surrender immediately." As the massive Kitharan fleet began moving toward human space, Vorthak felt the familiar satisfaction that came with expanding the Empire. Soon, humanity would learn what every other species in the galaxy had learned. Resistance to Kitharan rule was not just futile, it was unthinkable. The Empire was eternal, and its march across the stars was inevitable. The journey to human space took 2 weeks at standard fleet velocity. During this time, Vorthak studied everything available about their new targets. The humans seemed to be traders and explorers primarily, with limited military capabilities. Their ships were small and appeared to prioritize speed and efficiency over armor and weapons. Perfect victims for the Kitharan war machine. Supreme Admiral, Communications Officer Thys reported as they reached the edge of the Arcturus sector. "We're detecting a single vessel in our path. It appears to be human." Vorthak moved to the tactical display, curious about this development. The ship was indeed small by Kitharan standards, roughly the size of one of their escort vessels. However, something about its design caught his attention. Where most ships they encountered had graceful curves or decorative elements, this human vessel was purely functional. Every line and surface seemed designed for a specific purpose. "Classification?" he asked. "Unknown. Supreme Admiral. The design doesn't match any vessel type in our databases. It appears to be military in nature, but the humans aren't supposed to have significant military assets in this region." Vorthak studied the lone ship on his display. It was holding position directly in the path of his fleet, making no attempt to flee or hide. Either these humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. In his experience, most species were the latter. "Open a communication channel," he commanded. "Let's see if these humans understand the situation they found themselves in." The main display flickered, and suddenly Vorthak found himself looking at a human for the first time. The creature was even smaller than he had expected, with pale skin and short dark hair. But there was something in the human's eyes that he found unexpectedly intriguing. Most species displayed fear or desperation when facing a Kitharan fleet. This human showed neither. "I am Supreme Admiral Vorthak of the Kitharan Empire," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You will identify yourself and explain why you block our passage." The human on the screen straightened slightly, showing no signs of intimidation. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We've received reports of aggressive actions against peaceful colonies in this sector. I'm here to investigate these claims and ensure the safety of civilian populations." Vorthak's mandibles clicked in amusement. The human spoke with the confidence of someone commanding a vast fleet, yet she had only a single small ship. "Captain Chen, you face the combined might of the Kitharan Empire. We have conquered 73 star systems over 400 years. Your investigation is unnecessary. These colonies will submit to imperial rule, just as all others have." "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Admiral," Captain Chen replied calmly. "We don't recognize your authority over sovereign human colonies. I'm ordering you to withdraw from this system immediately." The bridge of the world ender fell silent. In 4 centuries of conquest, no being had ever given such an order to a Kitharan Supreme Admiral. Vorthak felt a mix of emotions he rarely experienced: surprise, anger, and something else he couldn't quite identify. "You order us," he said slowly, making sure he had heard correctly. "Captain, you command a single ship against a fleet of 200 vessels. Are you perhaps suffering from some form of mental deficiency common to your species?" Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I command one ship that's enough to stop 200 of yours. If you proceed toward the human colonies, you'll find out why. This is your only warning." Vorthak stared at the small human for a long moment, then gestured for the communication to be ended. He turned to face his bridge crew, all of whom appeared as stunned as he felt. "Sub-Admiral Krex," he said finally, "scan that vessel. I want to know everything about its capabilities." As his crew worked frantically at their stations, Vorthak found himself thinking about the human captain's words. No species had ever claimed they could stop a Kitharan fleet with a single ship. Such confidence was either the product of incredible technological advancement or complete insanity. He was very curious to discover which it was. The immovable object. Captain Sarah Chen ended the communication and turned to face her bridge crew. The UES Defiance was unlike any ship Earth had ever built before. Sleek, compact, and packed with experimental technology, it represented humanity's first serious attempt at creating a vessel capable of standing against overwhelming odds. More importantly, it was crewed by people who refused to accept that impossible odds meant certain defeat. "Well, that could have gone better," said Commander Jake Morrison, the ship's tactical officer. Jake was a former fighter pilot who had transitioned to fleet operations after losing his left leg in a training accident. He had never let the injury slow him down, and his unconventional thinking had made him one of Earth's top strategic minds. "Actually, I think it went exactly as planned," Sarah replied, settling into the captain's chair. "We got their attention, and we've established that we're not going to simply run away. Now they have to decide whether they believe we can back up our words." Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her science station, her expression tense but determined. Elena had been handpicked for this mission because of her expertise in alien technology and her ability to find creative solutions under pressure. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from their fleet. Their lead vessel alone has more firepower than our entire home defense network." "I know, Elena." Sarah nodded. "That's exactly why we're here. Earth Command knew this day would come eventually. Some aggressive species would set their sights on human colonies, and we have to find a way to protect our people without having the biggest guns in the galaxy." Lieutenant Marcus Webb, their pilot, turned from his controls with a grin that didn't quite hide his nervousness. Marcus was the youngest member of the crew, but he could make the Defiance dance through space like a fighter craft despite its size. "So what's the plan, Captain? I'm guessing we're not actually going to fight 200 alien warships head-on." Sarah smiled at her crew, proud of their steadiness in the face of impossible odds. This was what made humans special, she believed. When faced with an unwinnable situation, they didn't surrender or despair. They got creative. "The plan is simple," she said. "We're going to give them a fight they've never seen before. Elena, what's the status on our special modifications?" "All systems are green, Captain," Elena replied, consulting her displays. "The adaptive shields are fully charged, the gravitational disruptor is online, and our new propulsion system is ready for combat operations. I should warn you, though, we're still in the experimental phase. Some of these systems have never been tested under actual combat conditions." "Then I guess we're about to find out if human ingenuity is as good as we think it is," Sarah said, standing up and moving to the main tactical display. "Jake, show me their formation." The display lit up with tactical information about the approaching Kitharan fleet. 200 vessels of various sizes were arranged in a classic hammer formation, designed to overwhelm any defensive position through sheer concentrated firepower. It was textbook military strategy, the kind that had worked for them for 4 centuries. "They're not even trying to be clever about it," Jake observed. "Just straight-up overwhelming force. No subtlety, no deception, no backup plans. Their entire strategy seems to be based on the assumption that they'll never face serious resistance. That's their weakness," Sarah realized. "They've won so many times using the same tactics that they've stopped thinking about alternatives. They probably can't imagine a scenario where their standard approach doesn't work." "Captain," Communications Officer Lisa Park announced, We're receiving a transmission from the Kitharan flagship. Audio only this time. Sarah nodded. Put it through. Admiral Vorthak's deep voice filled the bridge. Captain Chen, my tactical officers have completed their analysis of your vessel. While your technology shows some interesting innovations, you remain vastly outgunned and outnumbered. I'm prepared to offer you terms. Surrender now, and you and your crew will be given positions within the Imperial fleet. Your technological knowledge would be valued. Sarah exchanged glances with her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. You see, there's something you don't understand about humans. We don't surrender. Ever. Even when we probably should. Captain, Vorthak's voice carried a note of genuine puzzlement. Your resistance serves no logical purpose. You cannot win. Why choose meaningless death over productive service? Because, Admiral, Sarah replied, humans have learned that some things are more important than survival. Our colonies represent the hopes and dreams of millions of people who left everything behind to build new lives among the stars. They trusted us to protect those dreams. We won't let them down, no matter what the odds. There was a long pause before Vorthak responded. Very well, Captain Chen. You have chosen your path. We will sweep your vessel aside and proceed to claim our new territories. Perhaps the next time our species meet, your leaders will be wiser. I don't think there's going to be a next time like this. Admiral, Sarah said quietly. Marcus, take us to attack position. Elena, charge all systems. Jake, prepare to show them what human ingenuity looks like. The Defiance moved forward, a single small ship facing down an armada that had conquered 73 worlds. To any outside observer, it would have looked like suicide. But Sarah Chen and her crew understood something that the Kitharans didn't. Sometimes, David really could beat Goliath. You just had to be willing to use a very unconventional slingshot. Admiral, Sub-Admiral Krex reported from his position on the World Enders Bridge. The human vessel is approaching us at high speed. They appear to be on an attack vector. Vorthak watched the tactical display with growing fascination. The human ship was moving in a pattern unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of approaching in a straight line or following standard attack protocols, it seemed to be dancing through space, following an erratic path that made it difficult to target. Interesting, he murmured. Order all forward units to open fire. Let's end this quickly. The Kitharan fleet opened fire with devastating effectiveness. Energy beams and projectile weapons filled the space around the approaching human vessel. Any normal ship would have been destroyed instantly by such concentrated firepower, but Captain Chen had not brought a normal ship to this fight. Adaptive shields responding perfectly, Elena reported with excitement. The gravitational distortions are deflecting their energy weapons, and our electromagnetic barriers are handling the projectiles. Damage is minimal. Impossible, Krex breathed, staring at his tactical readings. Our weapons are having virtually no effect. Their defensive systems are unlike anything in our databases. Vorthak felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Uncertainty. The human ship was not only surviving their attack, it was getting closer. More importantly, it was moving in ways that suggested its crew understood Kitharan tactics better than they understood human capabilities. Sir, the navigation officer called out urgently, the human ship has just executed a maneuver that should be physically impossible. They changed direction by 90 degrees without slowing down. Show me, Vorthak demanded. The main display showed the Defiance spinning through space in a complex spiral pattern that allowed it to avoid weapons fire while simultaneously closing the distance to the Kitharan fleet. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Aboard the Defiance, Marcus Webb was having the time of his life. The ship's new propulsion system allowed for three-dimensional movement that broke every rule of conventional space combat. Captain, we're in range for our special surprise. Do it, Sarah commanded. The Defiance suddenly stopped its wild movement and faced the Kitharan flagship directly. For a moment, it seemed like the small ship was finally going to make a conventional attack. Then space itself seemed to twist around the world ender. Gravitational disruptor firing, Elena announced. Direct hit on their flagship. Admiral Vorthak felt his mighty dreadnought shudder as forces he didn't understand seized hold of his ship. The world ender began spinning slowly, its massive weapons unable to track targets while its orientation shifted unpredictably. Report, Vorthak demanded, fighting to maintain his balance as the ship's artificial gravity struggled to compensate. Unknown weapon effect, Krex replied, gripping his station to avoid falling. They've somehow destabilized our gravitational systems. We're losing attitude control. Before Vorthak could respond, the human ship did something even more unexpected. Instead of pressing its attack while the flagship was vulnerable, it opened a communication channel. Admiral Vorthak. Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge. I hope this demonstration has been educational. As you can see, humans fight differently than other species you've encountered. We don't rely on bigger guns or thicker armor. We adapt, we innovate, and we never give up. The Defiance released its gravitational hold on the world ender, allowing the massive ship to stabilize. Vorthak found himself staring at the human vessel with something approaching respect. Your point is made, Captain, he admitted. But you still face 200 ships. You cannot disable us all. You're right, Admiral. Sarah agreed. I can't disable all of your ships, but I can make this fight so expensive that conquering human colonies won't be worth the cost. The question is, are you willing to find out exactly how expensive it will be? For the first time in 4 centuries of conquest, Supreme Admiral Vorthak found himself genuinely uncertain about the outcome of a battle. The humans had shown him capabilities he didn't understand, tactics he couldn't predict, and a determination that defied all logic. More importantly, they had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had made the mighty Kitharan Empire hesitate. Stand down all weapons, Vorthak ordered quietly. Sir,